The snow fell in lazy spirals, blanketing Manhattan in a soft, glowing stillness. Through the wide glass windows of the Pierce Tower penthouse, the city lights glittered below like 1,000 fallen stars. Inside, the vast office was empty except for one man, Alexander Pierce, CEO of Pierce Holdings, staring out into the December night with a glass of untouched scotch in his hand. The city looked alive. His life did not. At 42, Alexander had everything most men could dream of: wealth, power, respect. Magazines called him the Iron CEO, a man of brilliance and precision, the kind who could make or break markets with a single word. But behind the perfectly tailored suits and the cold authority, there was a silence that followed him everywhere. A silence born on Christmas Eve, 10 years ago. That was the night his wife, Emily, died in a car crash on her way to surprise him at the office with dinner and gifts. He had been too busy finalizing a deal, too focused on success to answer her last call. The phone had rung again and again that night, and when he finally picked up, it wasn't Emily's voice, it was a police officer's. Ever since that moment, Christmas had turned from a holiday into a haunting. He tried escaping it for years, traveling abroad, staying in hotels, working through the nights, but no matter where he went, the season always found him. The lights, the music, the joy of strangers, they only deepened the ache. So, he had stopped running. Now, he simply waited it out in silence, letting the holiday pass like a ghost through his empty mansion. By 9 o'clock, the snowstorm had thickened. The world outside blurred into white, and the city lights dimmed beneath the heavy clouds. Alexander drove home in silence, his luxury car gliding through the empty streets until he reached his sprawling estate at the edge of the Hudson River. The mansion looked magnificent, adorned with perfect strings of white lights, a 12-foot Christmas tree glowing in the foyer, a feast prepared by the staff who had already gone home. It was beautiful, and hollow. He took off his coat and hung it carefully by the door. His footsteps echoed through the marble hallways. The fire burned in the living room, its orange glow reflecting on polished floors and silver ornaments. But the warmth didn't reach him. He poured another drink, sat by the window, and watched the snow fall. Somewhere, in the distance, he could hear faint laughter, maybe from a nearby family gathered by their own fire, opening presents, singing carols. The sound was like a knife wrapped in velvet. Another Christmas, he murmured to himself, his voice hoarse. Another year alone. He turned toward the fireplace. On the mantel stood a small framed photo of Emily, her bright eyes and warm smile frozen in time. She was wearing a red scarf, her favorite one, the one she'd worn the day she died. He had kept it folded in a drawer for 10 years, unable to touch it, unable to throw it away. Emily, he whispered, I'm sorry I didn't answer the phone. The flames crackled in answer. Outside, the storm grew fierce. The windows rattled. The power flickered once, twice, then steadied again. Alexander sighed, setting down his glass. He was used to storms, both in weather and in life. They came and went, and he remained the same, untouched, unmoved, alone. But then, knock, knock. He froze. The sound was soft, hesitant, almost lost beneath the wind. He frowned, listening. No one ever came to his house without calling first. His security team was off duty for the holidays. The gate should have been locked. Then, another knock, firmer this time. He rose, setting his drink aside, and walked toward the front door. The massive oak doors loomed tall, their brass handles gleaming under the chandelier light. As he opened them, a gust of icy wind rushed in, along with two figures. A woman stood shivering in the snow, her thin coat soaked through, her hair damp, her cheeks flushed red from the cold. Beside her stood a little girl, no older than 6, clutching a small gold-wrapped box in her mittened hands. I'm so sorry to bother you, the woman stammered, her voice trembling. Our car broke down just down the road. The snow's getting bad, and we saw your lights. Could we, please just wait inside until the tow truck arrives? For a long moment, Alexander said nothing. He wasn't used to visitors. Certainly not ones like this, strangers, desperate and cold, standing on his doorstep on Christmas Eve. Then his eyes fell on the child. Her lips were pale, her nose red, her little hands shaking. Without another word, he stepped aside. Come in, he said quietly. Dash dash dash. The warmth of the house wrapped around them like a blanket. The little girl gasped softly as she entered the grand foyer, her eyes wide at the towering Christmas tree. "Mommy, look," she whispered. "It's like in the movies." Her mother smiled faintly, exhaustion and gratitude mingling on her face. "Yes, sweetheart. It's beautiful." Alexander gestured toward the living room. "Sit by the fire. I'll get towels." He returned a moment later with soft towels and 2 mugs of steaming hot chocolate, the only comforting thing his chef had left behind. The woman accepted hers with trembling hands. "Thank you, Mr. Ellipsis question mark quote. Pierce," he said. "Alexander Pierce." Something flickered in her eyes, recognition. The Alexander Pierce. He gave a small, weary smile. The one who's supposed to be too rich to answer the door. "Yes, that's me." She blushed, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I just, thank you. I'm Clara, and this is my daughter, Lily." The little girl smiled up at him, her curls bouncing. "Hi, Mr. Pierce." "Hello, Lily," he said gently. "That's a lovely present you have." Lily nodded proudly. "It's for Santa. But Mommy says maybe we can give it to someone who needs it more." Alexander blinked, caught off guard by her innocence. "That's very kind of you," he murmured. As the storm howled outside, the 3 of them talked, at first awkwardly, then easily. Clara explained that she worked as a nurse's assistant. She and Lily had been driving to her sister's house for Christmas dinner when their old car broke down. The nearest tow truck had promised to come, but the storm delayed them. "I didn't mean to intrude," she said softly. "We just didn't want to freeze in the car." "You did the right thing," Alexander assured her. Lily played quietly by the fire, humming carols to herself as Clara sipped her drink. Alexander found himself watching them, the gentle affection between mother and child, the way Clara smiled even through exhaustion. It reminded him of Emily, her laughter, her kindness, her warmth. For the first time in years, the mansion didn't feel like a tomb. The laughter, the sound of tiny footsteps, the soft murmur of Clara's voice, they breathed life back into the empty walls. When the clock struck midnight, Clara looked up from her cup and said softly, "Merry Christmas, Mr. Pierce." Alexander swallowed hard, emotion catching in his throat. "Merry Christmas, Clara." Outside, the snow began to calm. Inside, the fire burned bright, and for the first time in a decade, Alexander Pierce didn't feel alone. He didn't know it yet, but that knock on his door had changed everything. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall arched windows, spilling golden light across the grand living room. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside blanketed in a clean, quiet white. Alexander Pierce stood in his kitchen, a room that had seen more staff than guests, wearing a dark sweater and holding a spatula like it was a foreign object. For a man who had signed billion-dollar contracts and commanded boardrooms full of executives, flipping pancakes was an oddly humbling experience. The smell of butter and vanilla filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of pine from the Christmas tree. He hadn't cooked breakfast for anyone since Emily. And yet, this morning felt different. Lighter. Warmer. He glanced toward the living room. On the couch, little Lily was still asleep, curled up beneath a thick blanket, her golden hair spread across the pillow. Beside her, Clara, her mother, sat quietly, gazing out the window, her face softened by the morning glow. Something stirred deep in Alexander's chest, an emotion that frightened him by how natural it felt. It wasn't loneliness. Not anymore. It was belonging. Dash dash dash. Clara turned when she smelled the pancakes. "You cook?" she asked, surprised, her voice light with amusement. Alexander smiled a little. "I used to. My wife loved pancakes on Sunday mornings." He didn't mean to say it, but the words slipped out before he could stop them. The air grew still for a second, but Clara's eyes were kind. She didn't press or pity him. She simply nodded. "She must have been lucky," she said softly. He looked down at the golden pancakes sizzling in the pan. "No," he said after a moment. "I was." When breakfast was ready, Lily woke up, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "What's that smell?" she mumbled. "Magic pancakes," Alexander said, smiling. "Guaranteed to make snowstorms disappear." Lily giggled and clapped her hands. "Then I want 3. The kitchen filled with laughter. For the first time in years, it didn't echo, it belonged. Clara helped set the table while Lily insisted on pouring syrup. There was a small mess, a few sticky fingers, and 1,000 quiet moments Alexander wished could last forever. After they finished eating, Lily wiped her mouth and pulled the small gold box from her coat pocket. "Mr. Pierce," she said shyly, holding it out to him, "you can open it. Mommy says Christmas is for sharing." Alexander hesitated. "Are you sure? That looks special." She nodded, her eyes bright. "It is. I made it with Mommy. For someone who looks sad." Something inside him cracked. Gently, like the first ray of sunlight after years of darkness. He took the box carefully, unwrapping it. Inside was a hand-knitted scarf. Uneven, small, but full of care. One side was red, the other white, with little gold threads running through it. "I made it," Lily said proudly. "Mommy helped me. I wanted it to be warm and happy." Alexander's throat tightened. His hands trembled slightly as he ran his fingers over the soft yarn. He couldn't remember the last time someone had made him a gift. Something handmade, imperfect, real. "Thank you, Lily," he said quietly, his voice rough. "It's the best gift I've ever received." Clara smiled softly, though her eyes glistened with tears. "You've given her more than you know," she said. She hasn't smiled like this since her dad left. There it was again, that invisible thread connecting two people who had lost something they loved. Dash dash dash. When the tow truck finally arrived just before noon, Clara began gathering their things. "I can't thank you enough," she said as she helped Lily into her coat. "You didn't have to do all this." Alexander stood by the door, scarf still in his hands. "I didn't do much," he said honestly. "You and Lily, you brought something back into this house I thought was gone forever." Clara tilted her head, curious. "What's that?" "Christmas," he said simply. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, no words, just understanding. Lily tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, can we come back next Christmas?" Clara chuckled softly, embarrassed. "Lily." But Alexander smiled. "Only if you promise to bring another one of your magical presents." Lily grinned. "Okay." As they stepped outside, the sunlight sparkled across the snow like diamonds. The air was crisp, clean, and full of promise. Clara turned back one last time. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Pierce," she said. He nodded. "It is now." Dash dash dash. Hours passed after they left. The mansion felt quieter, but not empty, not anymore. The echo had changed. It was as if laughter still lingered in the halls, refusing to fade. Alexander sat by the fire, Lily's scarf resting across his lap. He traced its uneven stitches with his thumb, smiling softly. He thought of Emily. Her love, her laughter, her endless belief that kindness could change the world. He looked toward her framed photograph on the mantel. "You'd like them," he whispered. "They remind me of you." He poured himself a cup of coffee, not scotch, and stood at the window, watching the snow glitter under the fading sun. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the cold creeping in. He felt hope. Dash dash dash. That evening, just as he was about to turn off the lights, his phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen. "Thank you again for everything. You saved our Christmas. Clara." Before he could type a reply, another message came through. "Lily says she forgot her favorite mitten on your couch. She wants to come back tomorrow to pick it up." He smiled. A real, unguarded smile, and typed back. "Tell her I'll keep it safe. And I'll make pancakes." There was a pause, then a heart emoji appeared on the screen. He set the phone down, laughter rising quietly in his chest. The scarf slipped from his lap onto the chair beside him. The gold threads caught the firelight and shimmered like tiny stars. Dash dash dash. The next morning, the sound of a knock echoed again through the grand hallway, soft, familiar. When he opened the door, Clara and Lily stood there, cheeks flushed from the cold, snowflakes caught in their hair. Lily held out her mitten and giggled. "See, told you we'd come back." Alexander smiled. "I was counting on it." Clara looked at him, really looked, and saw the change in his eyes. The grief was still there, but it had softened, replaced by something warmer. "Breakfast again?" she asked, teasingly. He nodded. "Pancakes are becoming a tradition." As they stepped inside, laughter filled the air again. The mansion glowed brighter, as if it, too, had been waiting for this moment. Dash dash dash. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep beside the fireplace again, Clara sat with Alexander in the quiet glow of the Christmas lights. Funny, she said, gazing at the flames, how sometimes the wrong road leads us exactly where we're meant to be. He turned to her, his voice soft. Maybe there are no wrong roads. Just detours that bring us home. Outside, snow began to fall again. Soft, gentle, endless. And in that moment, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and the soft rhythm of a new beginning, Alexander Pierce finally understood. Christmas wasn't about what was lost. It was about what could still be found. He glanced at Clara, at Lily's scarf draped across the couch, and smiled. For the first time in 10 years, the billionaire who had everything finally had something real. Something no money could ever buy. A family.